We're live.
Yeah, we are live. It's been a minute.
It has been.
It's been what,
feels
2
like
weeks?
Yeah, 2
Yeah.
weeks. So
Lot happens
Yeah.
in 2 weeks.
so much.
I feel like we should get into what was grim and what was great,
I think so too.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start first.
Okay. I was going to start for
Oh,
once.
We'll go.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I only said it because I actually have something.
Okay, what do you got?
Oh, I was sick. That was my grim.
Oh.
Oh.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
My
that's
grim
right.
was that I was sick.
She got COVID.
She had COVID.
did.
Still going
The
around.
Rona.
Sorry, guys. I did get COVID, but at the same time, it wasn't as bad as other stuff going around. So I kind of feel like it wasn't like the worst of what it could have had. But at the same time, I was kind of sad because I kind of put myself a little bit under quarantine so I wouldn't get other people sick.
It probably
So.
wasn't fun.
No, it
Never
wasn't.
fun to be sick.
I think the worst part of like some of the times when you get sick is like having the fever chills, and it's almost like your body's gaslighting you because you're like, wait, is it just because like it's cold in here, or is it because my body's going through something? And then you have to be like, no, I'm for sure feeling sick.
Right.
Like, I'm achy. I don't feel good.
Well,
and
it's cold and you're sweaty.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
this
you're
horrible
sweating.
like back and forth of like, why am I shivering, but yet I'm sweating, and you know,
Right.
I remember, I forget what day it was, but I had woken up and it was like just wet.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
ew.
That's
But I
when you
also felt
know.
good because that's when I broke it.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like, oh, okay.
But then
fine.
you take a shower and you're absolutely exhausted because
Yeah.
all of your energy
Just like
drained.
brushing your hair is a task. Just
It
like-
was a little bit annoying because like I feel like there's some people with work that were like, absolutely take your rest, like, you know, we want you to feel better. And there's like some people that just kind of like completely ignored it and were like, make sure you get this done. And I'm like, girl, I'm like, I can't focus on the wall right now. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Because
I
it's just so
can't get my
fatigued.
job done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm pretty sure you don't want me to do any type of work related things right now because
It's not
it'll
gonna
all
get
be
done
messed
right.
up.
Yeah, exactly.
So like that was my grim, and my great was I mean overall it's been great. Like I don't know, I feel pretty good. I've just been kind of like taking care of my body. I think I've been consistently, even though being sick, I've been consistently being active, so that makes me feel good about
Whoop, whoop.
myself. And then also like going to church consistently, so that's been making me feel good about myself and like just I don't know, growth and development, I guess.
That's good.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
I need to go to the gym more. It's just getting the
Don't we all?
it's just
Yeah.
like, okay, I gotta go.
Honestly,
and then I get
you have to
distracted.
be delusional. I think that's how I
Yeah.
did it this time. Like I literally
Just make yourself go no matter what mood
just
you're
no
in.
matter what mood, just make yourself go. Like I told you, remember I was saying that like I would just go to the gym and just be like, hey,
And just
like
sit there.
lifting
Yeah.
things, sitting there, just being in the space, and then like the more you're in the space,
Just
the more you're
doing
like
it.
end up doing it.
Yeah.
It develops a habit. a
Yeah,
healthy
so I was
habit.
just like, I'm gonna just go, and like if I don't end up doing a full workout, then that's okay.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
like whatever. Who's
Mhm.
gonna come up to me and be like, oh, you didn't do your workout? Like, I don't know.
Exactly. I think there is a part of me though, whenever I go to the gym by myself, I think I could just walk out and no one would care.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I could do
So true.
absolutely nothing and no one's going to be like, "Hey, why didn't you finish your workout?" You
Yeah,
know?
shame on you.
Yeah,
Another
shame on
thing
you.
though too is like I will say to add on, I think I was telling Bex this. I have like a couple of crushes at the gym now.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do
All
tell.
right.
Oh,
Is it
that's
just-
it. I just
Is it like
great.
a staring relationship?
Oh, I
or
think
is
it's
it-
one-sided. I mean, literally that's
Oh,
like,
that's right. You have a
that's just
relationship in
me
your
and
head.
My life of
Yeah.
my romantic life.
But
But,
have
like,
you talked to them?
No.
No.
except one because I was going off on my sister about like this guy who sent like this really like very sexualized text to or like message to me on a dating
Mm.
app, and I was just over it.
Yeah.
This was a couple weeks ago because I'm no longer on the apps, but I was just like, how does he think he can talk to me like that? And like, actually, I'm gonna pass on you and blah blah blah. And I turn around,
Yeah.
and one of my gym crushes is just like sitting there next to the barbell, and he was so close that I literally was like, oh, I'm sorry, and he was like, what? And I was like, I'm so sorry if I was going off and that was weird. And he was like, oh no, you're fine, don't worry about it. And I was like, okay, yeah.
So weird.
And then I just
That's
like turned
awkward.
around and then started my workout, and I was like, oh my gosh, like
What did
Cherish
I
does
just
not
do?
care about. So then ever since then, like I've never had another
No more contact.
no more contact with him. But like I know like right now, like it's just like me, I think more so like
Building it up in your
into
head.
them. and perhaps like maybe one out of maybe the 4 crushes that I have there knows that I'm a person, but they don't look at me.
Oh, okay.
I don't think, at least.
Well, you
I
never
want to try
know.
the double back Bonnie.
Maybe you're doing the thing where you look at them, and then as soon as you look away, they look at you. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Because that happens.
It's like I don't want to look too much because it's like I don't
want to
know.
appear desperate.
Well, then they'll look more because they'll be like, wait, why is she looking at me?
Right.
I do want to try.
Yeah, super creepy.
I want to try the double black Bonnie, and we can get into that another time. But I will say that that has been a motivator.
Like a sex move.
The double back Bonnie I found on IG. It's essentially where like you.
Doesn't it sound like a position?
You smile, and then you look away.
Oh, okay.
And then you smile again. So it's like it's like pretty much us as women giving an invitation to them to let them know that you're interested.
So they're either gonna come up and be like, "Are you okay, ma'am?" or do you want my number?
Yeah, something of that number. I haven't practiced the double back Bonnie yet because I'm just like, oh, this is lethal.
You gotta practice in the mirror.
It sounds
first.
like you need to stretch first. Is what it sounds like.
I mean, honestly, like part of me is like, when you have a crush, but like at the same time, it's like the space that you're in right then. It's so nice to just be in that space. I don't want that to come crashing down.
Oh yeah.
I don't want the reality yet. So it's also part of the delusion of like, I'm going because it's like I might see them and like
it's exciting.
It could happen. Something could happen.
Yeah.
But like I'm in the space where it's just like, oh, it couldn't. I don't know.
And if it doesn't work out, then you might have to change gyms,
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And I don't want to change gyms right now. So
right.
Sorry, that was long-winded.
Yeah, what was your grim
My
or great,
grim.
Lizzie?
Now I'm single. And Vex's husband,
It's not weird at all.
Chan Man got me a calendar. If you can see it, it's got cowboys on it. He thought I would appreciate looking at the men on it. So, each month.
Let's enjoy it together.
Oh wait.
Go ahead and show us.
Open it up.
Yeah.
What is
I could salivate each month about which
what
cowboy
Marsh looks like?
Yeah. It's hard to see them. They're kind of like.
Oh, you're passing it.
I feel like we need to hang it up on the wall.
Like kind of
great. Hot.
First
darkened
of all,
out black.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Chancellor's gonna watch this. Can you next time you send a calendar make sure it's a little bit more clearer, detailized,
closer up?
If they're naked, that's fine.
Yeah,
too.
topless cowboys.
Although,
but
I don't know how I would feel about getting a gift like that. But anyway,
yeah. I mean, I don't remember him getting me a gift for my birthday, so that's something special, right?
How about we
there.
just ask all of our listeners? Please send us
what would you like to receive?
I'm kind of
calendars
afraid.
of topless men. They could be firefighters. They could be
Right.
Oh, just topless.
We don't
policemen.
discriminate
They
here.
could be
I do like the
You
uniform.
could be a finance
Yeah.
girl for all we know with a
Don't
tie.
get me wrong. The uniform, that'd work for me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. All
What
right.
was the grim?
Well, my dad was in the hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
a grim. But he's doing better. So
That's
it's a
good.
grim and great, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's back home.
Okay.
So, yep.
How are you?
That's about it.
How are you enjoying the single life, Lizzie?
But so Bex.
Wait, what?
I'm such an
How was your
instigator.
grim and
What was your
great?
grim and great?
I was like, wait, how do I? Okay.
I'm just making all the attention get off of me. That's all it is.
I was being a brat.
My grim and great. It's both. I played kickball for the first time yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
Nice.
I know I've never played kickball. I had no idea how to play.
How'd you do?
I did it.
Did you hit it?
I
You
did
get
it.
Okay.
I kicked the ball.
You kicked it.
And I ran 2 bases even though I was out, but nobody told me I was out. So I'm just like,
Aw.
and then they're like, honey.
Sit down. It's
You need to go
okay.
sit down.
And then
Dang.
somebody came up there like, you're flawless, you're beautiful, you're a queen, but you didn't need to do that.
Hey, at least they said
I
it
was
like that.
Got it. Yeah.
Lethal.
Was
Yeah.
it John?
Yeah, I was with John.
I was
on
gonna
his
say.
team. Yep, it's a pride league, so it was
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
I was
but-
going to say it had to have been a gay man that told you that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It
Wait
was
a
so
second.
much fun.
I
No,
love
we're not switching over from volleyball to dodgeball now, are we?
No, I'm just now it's
kickball.
it's kickball.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ooh.
No, I play kickball now on Saturdays and
Okay.
then volleyball on Tuesdays. When
Wow.
We actually have
Yeah.
a game this Tuesday.
Yeah, we
so.
do.
Yes,
actually.
we do, which I'm
It's
going
late, isn't
to
it?
try to make, but I'm supposed to fly to Amsterdam that day.
It is. I think it's at
Like 9:15.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a 9:15 one.
Anyway, I got sunburnt, so that part's not
Yeah.
great, but
here we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds fun.
Wait,
Yeah.
what was your
Any grim?
Yeah.
I mean, we
I
don't
think
have
the
to
grim
do
was
both.
being sunburnt. I really have nothing to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Add
it was,
to it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fun. That's all. That's all I really got. So
No grims at work.
you are just digging.
She
you
is.
are digging today. We gotta go. We gotta get started on this.
Anyway.
documentary.
Sorry.
Ah.
I'm sorry.
Ah.
I gotta
I'm
let
sweating
my
now.
brat shine at some point. Iris is not, she only takes so much of it.
I have
so.
I have a little bit of a stalker situation at work.
A situation.
Yeah. So and we'll get into that.
Watch,
maybe-
she's like watching.
I wish we had a Patreon now so
Probably.
we could like talk more about it.
That would
later.
be
Honestly,
great.
yes.
Yeah.
We could go
Yeah.
into a lot of stuff.
If we start seeing people commenting wanting a Patreon, we might just start putting that together.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Do you
we
wanna
kinda have to
know
know? Yeah, we kind of have
what
to know if
happens
that's
behind
something
the
that people
scenes?
Yeah,
wanna
we need
see.
to hear from our listeners. If we want to hear more about our personal
Would be like our personal
dating
lives.
stories
Yeah.
or stalker stories, let us know and
Yeah.
we'll make it
can get
happen in
into it.
Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we should really get into what we're supposed to be focusing on today.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but first, if you haven't watched this before, welcome to Grim Reviews. I'm Bex.
I'm Cherish.
I'm Lizzie.
And Grim Reviews is a true crime podcast where we cover all things grim and gruesome. And today we are going over Fox Hollow Farms. It's a really long
Fox Hollow
title.
Murders.
Fox Hollow Murders.
No, it's the Fox Hollow Farms Playground of a Serial Killer.
Yeah.
That's the full title.
Is
So-
it
Yeah, that's
really?
the full title.
And
Oh.
definitely trigger warnings. It's pretty graphic content that they're discussing in the documentary.
Yeah.
And spoiler warnings because
We're going to talk about it.
we're going to talk about it if
We
you haven't
are
watched it
gonna talk
already.
about
You should probably watch it.
But
Yeah.
also, too, we also are, if you haven't watched us before, we keep it light, in some areas, and we like to joke around and just like have a fun time with it. So just to kind of let you know, if that's not your cup of tea, then that's okay. But that's just how we digest certain stories that we come across and that we watch and stuff. But yeah.
And we're still sensitive about the serious topics. Like, we're not like, did you see all those bone fragments down there?
Oh
You know what I mean? We're respectful
Yeah.
of the victims.
Humor is
but
how you cope. in a
There's
way, though,
humor
too.
in
Very
like,
much
can
so.
you believe they got away with it? Can
Right.
you believe that they did this dumbass thing that led to this?
Mhm.
So
Right.
there is some humor.
Yeah. It's an
For sure.
emotional roller coaster. That's why I like talking with you guys about stuff so much, because it's like we reach the highs and the lows and we're just kind of like, this is something we need to unpack. So,
For sure.
all right, well, let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Honestly, I feel like Lizzie was saying at a certain point,
I didn't like
and
it.
then she didn't like. I kind of have to agree with Lizzie. It's not the story again. It's never about the story.
It wasn't
in
the
itself.
story. It was
It's
the way it
just
was told.
the way that it was told, and I don't know. Maybe I'm super critical. Maybe that's what it is. Are you joining me in the critical bucket?
I mean, I know we
critical
watched
bucket.
we watched it together the first go round.
Yeah.
So maybe we were like feeding off of each other a little bit. But I really, even on the second time I watched it, I felt like it was a padded paper.
Okay.
Like it could have been. So what I mean by that is there was so and so amount of information and they kept like spreading it out to make it longer when
Yeah.
it really could have been, instead of 4 episodes, I feel like it could have been 2.
Was it 4?
Yeah.
I felt like it was 3
It was
episodes.
4
Oh, it was
episodes.
4.
the
That's
fourth
right.
episode,
It's a
in a
long
way, I
time.
think was like the shortest one, maybe, or something.
The 4th one?
Yeah.
I do feel like information was repeated a lot.
It was.
So I
Mhm.
can agree with you there. However, I liked that it felt like you were kind of trying to solve the mystery with them.
Mm.
I
did get
appreciated
that.
that. Like they were uncovering new content or they were documenting Mark Goodyear.
Yeah.
And
If I
so
wanted
a
to
bunch
be
of
a-
new information was coming up. I felt as if that was happening while the documentary was being filmed.
If I wanted to be a crime
Mhm.
scene investigator, though, I would have done that. I was just like, okay, I get it. You said it once. Like, let's
Yeah.
go.
I will have to say, like, I see for sure where you're coming from, where I do like to kind of be in the suspense of it all.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And where it's just like you're unveiling, but I do feel like Lizzie was saying when I was watching it, there was unnecessary pauses where I just was like,
Okay,
And
Yeah, so
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I'm not a director. I'm not, a producer or anything like that. But I will say that there was just a little bit of dragging it on where it's just like, okay, go to the next clip.
right.
And you can continue to hold us in like, oh, we're going to keep, going and filling you in as the story unfolds. But I just kind of felt like they were really slow.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? Why? Like, just.
And I
I
think
don't know.
too, well, I don't want to skip too ahead, but there were just some moments that I was like, is this necessary? And where are they going with this?
So good, because we
Yeah.
will get into that later on.
You know what I'm
because
talking about.
I think what I like to do, and maybe I'm not going to say hold me to it, but I tend to like to know what other people are thinking about it, like just on the forums and like Reddit or whatever.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I also like talking about it with you guys is also awesome, and like we get to unpack it. But I also would like just to know like what is the consensus or like from other people too.
Yeah.
And speaking on what you're talking about, I will share that consensus of what
When we
people were
get there.
saying. Yeah, when we get
Oh,
there.
okay.
Because I'm just kind of like, okay, like once again, it wasn't just me. Other
Right,
people felt this
right.
way.
Yeah.
So let's start the scene.
Yeah.
The setting of it all.
If you haven't heard of Fox Hollow Farms,
Mhm.
I just wrote down the little intro that they give on Hulu.
Yeah.
So Jeff Jellison, he is the coroner.
Mhm.
Coroner.
Words are hard. He launches a new investigation
Yep.
decades after thousands of bones were found in the woods behind Fox Hollow Farms, which is in Indiana.
Yes.
Pterodactyl's trying to bring down your mic over there.
Oh my goodness, come here. That's not a good place to
This
be.
is our little
here.
podcast buddy.
Must.
Come on.
Little kitty cat,
Little-
if you're an only
She's
listener.
shaking.
Mascot. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
She's all white and has extra toes.
Yes.
And in the event of a tragic death of
God
Bex
forbid.
and her husband, God
Oh
forbid,
my goodness, Lizzie.
she has
that
to bring it
cat
up
will
every
be
time.
mine.
Yeah. She
She
has
is
an
my
obsession.
goddaughter.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
So no, like she was just saying essentially that like it was based out of Indianapolis, and that it ended up being, I don't know, you were just pretty much giving the summary of like
Yeah, so
Yeah.
thousands of bones were found in the woods behind Fox Hollow Farms, and
Mhm.
it was compared, the scene was compared to John Wayne Gacy's backyard, where he just found like hundreds of bones and
Didn't know who they belonged to, what
just
happened.
a mess
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
they had to go through. So I think there were 13 bodies identified, 9,900 more bone fragments.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they basically, once these bones were uncovered, they basically gave up on the investigation just because there wasn't.
Well, there was not enough funding.
Yeah, I think
Yep.
the funding was it, but then there's also a lot of what is it called? There is
Discrimination.
going on.
Yes.
It's such a hard thing because when discrimination comes into play,
Mhm.
like it's not so bold and like right then and there.
It's a
where
little
people
more
can label
subtle.
it. It's
Yeah.
so subtle, and the microaggressions that
Mhm.
happen. The reason why they're called microaggressions because they're so small that if you're not woke or like in the know, or the person that is the minority, then you're not going to pick up on those things. And so I
Right.
think that like back in the 1990s specifically too, that was a time where being in the LGBTQ plus community was very much not accepted, and it was
Mhm.
still very much like an outsider to the norm. And so
Yeah.
I think that like when it comes down to the people that were missing, that was starting to kind of like ruffle the community of like, okay, where are these people at? Like, how come we're not seeing these people around? I think not a lot of people were
Did you know it
putting
was
too much attention to it.
Did you know
No.
it was a disorder at some point? It was considered
Yeah.
a disorder.
Yeah.
Which
And anybody who
is insane.
anybody who disappeared during that time, who was homosexual, they just thought that they died of AIDS because there was a huge
Right.
AIDS crisis going on,
Right.
or
Yeah.
they just abandoned their families because
Yeah.
their families weren't supporting them,
Right.
and so they just kind of assumed they ran off or they died of
Right.
AIDS.
Uh-huh.
Which is so sad because it's just kind of like, yeah, I understand that like there was, the AIDS, is circling around, but just like any other health concern,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that
You
you
should
just,
be
like,
looking
you don't-
into
yeah,
it.
That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you like just stop checking on tabs on someone.
Yeah.
It's almost comparing it to COVID nowadays. Like, oh, well,
Right.
you know, COVID's circling around,
So they
she's
just disappeared. I don't
It's
know.
just like, what?
Could be
that
that
doesn't make any
COVID.
sense. Like, we're talking about, yes, like AIDS is a real thing that impacts
Yeah.
people, but that shouldn't be a strong correlation to that person not now missing.
Yeah. It's like
Right.
if my dad went missing, I'd be like, well, he had cancer, so I don't
Right?
know.
Yeah, it just
Yeah,
takes people out,
it's-
and
It happens.
Not gonna follow
No,
up
that's
on
messed
that.
up. Yeah.
Yeah,
not
so-
gonna
Yeah.
follow-
I
Exactly.
saw in the beginning of the film, like, they were trying to link that to, I think the way that I took it was that was a time where there was oppression towards the LGBTQ plus community
Mhm. Oh, yeah,
because of that
absolutely.
happening. And so that's where, like, a lot of the people that were associated in that community were kind of getting fed up with, like, how they were being seen. And
Uh-huh.
with the missing of the people, it seemed as though kind of like, no, like, this isn't okay. And I think it became very apparent,
Yeah.
the mistreatment.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
definitely.
Because there was also the opposing side of people like, well, we don't want you, and you guys are
Mhm.
causing this and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I took it. But I don't know why they would ever make the correlation of like, oh, hey, it's, can't find them.
Right. And
I
then
think it's any excuse to be
Yeah.
like, listen, we don't really like this group of people.
So if they go missing and it's dwindling, then like, yay for us.
thin the herd,
Right,
you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
oh gosh.
I
that's
know.
a
I hate
terrible
saying
way
it,
to
but
say
it's
that.
kind of true.
It is,
Yeah.
Yeah. But also I feel like anybody that did reach out in the gay community for help,
Right.
they
Weren't taken as seriously.
They weren't taken seriously, but they also stopped reaching out for help because they knew they weren't being taken seriously.
Right.
So a lot of things were happening that they felt like they couldn't get help for
Right.
because they weren't being respected.
They
Yeah.
didn't get into it too much with, like, I guess all of the people who spoke up, or like, because there was some people that they didn't even really like focus in on that talked about how they noticed how certain people were missing, like when they would go to the bars and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But it didn't seem like they were really talking about where those people stood at that point in time, because part of me wonders, like, yes, sure that they were open in the community at the bars and stuff like that, but perhaps they weren't open in their
To their
personal lives and
families,
their
yeah, who
No,
knows?
there were
So,
a
like,
lot
I-
of closeted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I kind of feel like that
unfortunately.
was a heavy factor in,
Very much.
if they go missing, if my friend goes missing, yeah, I could go to the police and everything, but
They're
by
gonna
going
find
to
But
the
then
police
I
and
might
everything,
be
I'm opening-
outing them, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
a
like
good
if
point.
I was like someone's friend and like I would heavily be weighing that cost.
Yeah.
But then I
No, that's
probably
a good
would still
point.
tell the police, because it's just like, okay, this is
This
my
still
friend, but this is
outweighs, yeah.
someone I love. They
the
need to
risk.
be found, right?
Right.
But it's also
Yeah.
kind of like them being found. I have to also tell them like where I last saw them, where
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of where these missing people were last seen were in the gay bars and the
Right.
community, which were kind of kept on the DL during
Right.
this point.
And
in
maybe to the
time.
person that would report them would also have to say, well, this
Oh, I
is
was
where
there
I
too.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Out themselves
I mean,
as
So I
well.
can see how it's like
It's a good point.
a tricky web to going to officials, but then you're really kind of like, okay, everything has to be put out on the table. Almost.
and in a
Is it worth
perfect
it?
world, it wouldn't be like that.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
you know, especially back then, it was
Mhm.
definitely an issue.
Yeah.
So I think, like, from my personal opinion, I appreciated that part of the documentary, of the film,
Mm-hmm.
Where
of
it
them setting the
emphasized that.
scene and
Talking about the
giving you better
historical-
understanding of like, okay, this is what it looked like in this city,
Yeah.
This is how
and
it
like
was.
what they were going up against, leading into kind of like, obviously Fox Hollow Farms and finding.
It was showing the oppression that they were,
Right.
working with at the time. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I think
It
that was
set you back a little
a
bit.
huge
Mhm.
importance
Mhm.
right there.
And even the suspect was,
Yeah, Herb.
yeah, Herb.
Weird
There's also
Herb.
Herb and Herb.
Weird Herb.
Weird
That's such a
Herb.
good,
Herb.
good name.
Honestly,
But Herb Baumeister,
everybody
he was even a
almost weird.
closeted individual. So
Yeah.
He was married.
yeah, married, 3 kids,
Yeah.
Yep.
living
Married
a
to Julie.
normal,
Julie.
apparently normal life out on Fox Hollow Farms.
Makes you wonder,
Yeah.
like, what is she looking back at now and being like, oh.
You
Look
know
at
what?
that.
That's
Seen
what I
interview
was
her.
thinking too.
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
where'd she go? Where are her and her kids now? You
I
know,
don't know.
Probably far away from.
Well, not only would you have to deal with the fact of, oh, my husband's a cheater, he actually prefers men.
Right.
Because we don't know if he's bi or gay.
Yeah.
That was going on. But then he's a killer and a serial killer.
Yeah.
He did it at our home.
Right.
That's just a lot.
It's a lot to process.
I think
for
for
sure.
me, like, I think back then in the 90s, like, it's so much different to today in the sense of, like, today when people come out and they let their partners know, like, oh, actually I've been hiding this secret, I'm actually gay or whatever it is.
Right.
I think people are more accepting and, like, are putting themselves in that person's shoes more than back then.
Yeah.
And I feel like
yeah.
back then, even if she had maybe a suspicion about Herb and his double life,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, like, a lot of people back then just, like, chose to ignore it.
Yeah.
And not really, like, want to confront him about it. But
She probably was too.
I mean, honestly, if the whole serial killer aspect wasn't really a factor,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wonder if she kind of would have just kept playing it out.
It's possible.
Longer, you know what I mean?
And
Because-
maybe, like, let's just say he wasn't a serial killer, because these are whole separate issues.
Right,
I'm just
right.
saying she had to deal with a lot of information all
did.
all
at
at
once.
once.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily connected, but, like, there was pressure of, you need to do the social norm. You need
Right.
to get married to the opposite sex. You
Mhm.
need to have a family. And, like, let's just say, hey, she didn't even want to be a part of the social norm. She didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But she did it anyway. There are all kinds of things, I think, especially back then, you did just because that's what you were supposed to
I
do.
think so.
And not all the time did everyone say, like, hey, you're not doing what you're not supposed to do. People sometimes gave each other grace to just live their lives.
Right.
If does that make any sense?
Yeah.
It does in my head.
No, it does.
I feel like with Julie, and I could be wrong, I don't know if there's anything extra out there on their relationship. I'm sure there
Mhm.
probably is, but for me, what I got from it, it really did fit that description
Yeah.
of just kind of going with the flow of it. He checks the boxes. She checked his boxes.
That's what I'm
Yep.
saying.
Perhaps they liked each other at some point in time, but back then
Maybe
it
they
wasn't
weren't
really
in
about
love.
like love
Maybe-
and passion. I
right.
think
Just
it was
making
about
work.
building a family and maybe a legacy.
It's possible.
Because
yeah.
his dad was a doctor and had his own, like, practice or whatever.
That's right.
Because
'Cause-
remember, that's how the son finds.
I mean,
the-
historically, if you look at, like, the Victorian ages, there'd be a lot of time people would have arranged marriages
Right.
based off of, like, what
true.
worked for both
The
families.
societal expectations, financial
Exactly.
obligations.
and they
and
had
then,
mistresses and people.
I was
on
just
the
saying, then a lot of time they had mistresses and they didn't even have sex with each other. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Separate
they lived in separate
bedrooms.
bedrooms.
Yeah.
It was just an arrangement that worked for them. So it makes you
Mhm.
wonder how much of that was,
Yeah.
being
play.
played
I mean,
out.
honestly,
I don't know.
Like, would you really be like the mannequins in the house? Like, I'm so sorry. It's either you're with
That
him
would
in
bug
the
me.
sense of weirdness, or you're just like, who did I marry? Like, what?
That
the
was his
heck?
nickname, though. Weird Herb.
Yeah.
Weird.
Like,
yeah,
honestly,
that's so
would you
true.
What
want
do you
your
expect?
husband to be known as Weird Herb?
No.
Herb.
Herb or
Herb.
Herb?
I don't know. Herb.
Ah,
Herb.
Herb makes sense.
Herbert.
Herbert.
Herbert. Herbert.
Herbert. I'm sorry.
Let's get into how he was discovered. So these detectives started getting a lot of these missing cases that they've
Yes.
noticed over time,
Mhm.
because as we just said, those were harder to pick up because of this point in time
Mhm.
where this community wasn't really being paid attention to or just being overlooked. But they started noticing a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
It was always around these certain bars,
Yeah.
always the same age,
Yeah.
kind of same description,
Yeah.
or similar description,
Yeah.
all these missing people. And they're like, okay, we might have a killer on our hands.
Right.
And then, let's see what happened. There's so many people involved
So
in this case, but Mark
yeah.
Goodyear.
Yeah.
Mark Goodyear. That's where it really like launches off.
Yeah, that's how Herb was found, was through Mark Goodyear, who reported to the police
Mm-hmm.
that he had met a guy named Brian. Herb was going by an alias name, and I feel like there were a
Yeah.
lot of people during this point in time that were going by alias names,
Right.
Yeah.
to continue
Which-
to live their double
yeah.
life safely.
Exactly.
So he met a guy named Brian at this bar
Mm-hmm.
who invited him back to his home to
Right.
party it up.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts talking about the mannequins at the pool. They were like, they went to go hang out in the pool. There were mannequins everywhere.
Which is
Yeah.
weird.
And he felt really uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But he decided to have sex with him anyway, and then they
That's a choice.
participated
Herb
in
gave him a drink, but he said he decided not to
Yes.
drink it and just like poured it down the drain or something
Which
like
is
yeah, because he had a
smart.
feeling that
Because
he
I
was
feel like it was
trying
drugged.
to be roofied. But
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so you knew that
Yeah.
this guy was trying to drug you, but you still thought it was safe to go back to his house and have
But I
consensual
still want to
sex
have
with him?
sex.
Right.
Yeah, it's
and
fine.
Then, okay, no kink shaming here, but let's
No,
talk
it's
about
not a kink. That can't be a
let's talk
kink.
about
Never heard of that.
Let's talk about what was it
The
called?
choking?
No,
Yeah.
it's erotic
Asphyxiation,
asphyxiation,
yeah.
which is
Choking
it is a
up
kind
to
of a
you're about to
kink.
dress it. That is, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
kink.
but
it's
it's for
totally a
sexual
kink.
arousal. Yeah, because you kind of reach this euphoric state
High,
as
yeah.
you lose oxygen to your brain. So
It's not recommended though, because it's so close to you actually killing someone.
yeah,
I don't think it's something that like it's I hate to say like a kink being a norm, but it's not a norm kink.
I think it is.
it
Depends
might
on
be.
what
I think.
circle.
What are you what are you thinking
Let
about?
us
Are you,
know.
are you talking about choking someone, or are you talking about like?
Well, it's the same.
No,
it-
it's not.
No.
It's
not the
close
same.
to the same, isn't it?
Yeah, okay, that's true.
don't
I would
know.
say choking is a norm.
It's
Choking
But
is a norm
choking
kink.
out to the point of unconsciousness,
That's
no.
pretty. Yeah, that's what I say. That's pretty
Yeah.
extreme.
Yeah,
Bro.
it is an extreme
Bro.
kink. Bro.
Well, because it's like I know that people
That's
like, oh, I choke
dangerous.
someone,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know, you feel the pressure, you like to da da da.
And
but
they're
then,
doing it in a pool,
yeah. So like, let's just drown.
surrounded by
Right.
mannequins. Let's just
Yeah.
envision this.
So
Can you imagine going back to his house and be like,
Mark was like,
Great
I'm not
place you
okay
got
with
here."
you doing it to me, but I'm okay with doing it to you. That I thought was also weird.
Yeah, it was really weird.
So I was just kind of like, yeah, it's risky business because it's just like, how are you really going to determine how far is too far when you're
Right.
trying to reach in
Right.
consciousness for someone?
and you don't know this person. So
Right.
I totally, trust me, I get the kink. I'm just saying, I don't know with all of the
Yeah.
other context clues, maybe
Maybe
Yeah,
I
I
feel
feel
it's
like
not a good idea.
maybe you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Maybe not for a one night stand of someone you don't know.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I feel like that type of kink specifically, you really got to trust that person.
Yeah, not
Because
for a
it's-
one-night stand.
It's like
Yeah.
a tapping on the shoulder because
Mm-hmm.
you can't talk.
Right. And so what happened was
You have to have a safe word.
Brian- Oh yeah.
Except if you can't talk.
I was gonna say, girl,
That's
you
true.
really
You
got to
could do
trust
a
that
sign.
person.
What would
Yeah.
you do?
You like
Just be
tap
like-
them on the shoulder.
It's mine. Peace out.
Peace, right? Peace out. About to die. Can you not?
You'd be like,
It's okay, babe. I trust you to call me back to life.
oh boy.
Yeah,
It's
Okay.
a better plan than saying something.
I mean, no, yeah. I just, yeah.
Anyway, Brian asked Mark
Yeah.
to strangle him while he was masturbating in the pool, and then he wanted to return the favor, but then Brian realized that Mark wasn't drunk and so or not drugged
Yeah,
because
yeah,
he didn't
yeah.
actually
Mhm.
drink the drink.
Right.
So he ended up just spending the night and then took him home the next day.
Right.
Yeah.
This is all off of the words of
Mark.
obviously Mark. So
Yes.
it's just kind of like when
Who
he
we'll
tells
talk
the
about in a minute.
story, it's very much like when he goes to investigators and says what he says and stuff like that. You can tell that the investigators on like the video or whatever are just
Mhm.
like,
The
oh,
recording.
okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
know,
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Like
it is.
almost to the point where like they're
Okay.
I could imagine that, and I could be wrong because this is not fact based. I'm just like trying to like envision being in that room. It's just kind of like what he's saying is not checking out, in my opinion. But at the same time, they're like, oh, okay. I wonder if like just the topic is
Mhm.
uncomfortable for them.
Oh,
absolutely.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because I'm just kind of like. So, like, every single thing he said, you're not going to really just go into depth?
I'm sorry.
Jinx,
It's funny
you owe me a Coke.
because it's funny because we both said that we say absolutely way
Yeah,
too
yeah,
much.
yeah. I mean,
And we said it at the same time.
but I'm glad you guys
Oh,
did
okay.
because it's. I think that's what's going on. I don't know. I'm just kind of like, wait, you guys are not even gonna. I don't know. It's just kind of glazed over in a sense. It's just like he said so many things that it's just like, wait, what?
Well, I
Wait,
feel like
what?
I feel
Wait,
like
what?
this is super offensive, but I feel like they were just in the back of their heads going, okay, this is just a bunch of gay stuff. They're just doing gay stuff. So like it's whatever. So they weren't taking any of it seriously because it was like, oh, it's just a bunch of weird.
Oh, you're saying like the cops?
The detectives listening to his story, they're just like, okay, well,
it is
they're just being
offensive, but I
gay.
think
It
you might
is.
not be wrong. You know,
yeah,
because
that was like that
because
was their
they don't know
thought
about
process.
it.
Well, they're
Yeah.
just also not educated
so that's how they're
because
glazing
it's
out.
like
It's just like okay,
They're
all
like-
of the things
yeah.
that he said could have been done in a heterosexual relationship. So
That's
they're not really educated then at all.
Well, I
'cause
was
they're
gonna
just
say-
blinded by the fact that like, oh, you're gay.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that's what it boils down to is a lack of education
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
obviously, you know, what you can do with one relationship, you do with another.
Right.
So
Name
it's
one
it's,
thing that was actually
it's
gay
not-
that they did besides
right.
like
It's,
you know what I mean?
it's not
True.
something that you couldn't relate
Asphyxiation
to, but it's possible that at that time
Yeah.
they didn't
They were
know
blinded.
about it.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, well, maybe it's just something,
gay people
you know,
do.
I haven't
Yeah.
experienced that gay people do. Yeah.
Right.
It's possible.
It is possible. I mean,
For
we'll never
sure.
really know. I just feel like you can totally tell that the uncomfortableness is there for them.
Right.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
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 Said it again, but
Absolutely.
absolutely, it's our favorite word. But Mark couldn't. What I thought was interesting was that Mark couldn't lead them back to the farm
Hmm.
after he reported the incident.
I don't think he wanted to.
No.
And
Yeah.
and we hear so many more versions of the story later on as we go through this documentary, but this is just
Right.
the first time
First
he's
one.
reported it and told it to police. So just keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
But Mark says after he couldn't lead the detectives back to the farm, he starts spreading awareness to the community.
Right.
Like, hey, look out for this guy.
Such
His
and so,
name
yeah.
is Brian.
Mhm.
Don't go back to his house. Or at
Right.
least that's what he says.
That's
at
what
the
he
time.
says.
Right.
Yeah. And then one of Mark's friends eventually found a matching description of Brian
Mhm.
and reported the man's license plate number. I don't
Right.
remember what the vehicle looked like,
Mhm.
but so that's kind of how they pinged who
Right.
Brian was, and they
Right.
ended up finding out that it's Herb Baumeister.
Right.
And
At this point too, like once they ping that it's Herb, they're also trying to get, you know, access to search the property and all that and all that jazz. And you know, they're not allowing that to happen. Julie is supporting her husband.
Mm-hmm.
But it also is bringing up a time where their son, Eric Baumeister, I think it's called.
I always said Baumeister.
Baumeister. Had at one point too discovered a skull in the backyard.
Well, this is actually why Julie allowed them
Yeah.
to search the property, even though that they didn't have a warrant.
Exactly.
Because she was already
supporting-
suspicious.
She was probably
because
like,
2 years
why is there a
ago-
skull back here?
Right,
yeah,
right,
Yeah.
right.
And that had happened 2 years prior.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That her son found a skull just playing in the woods.
Can you
in the back.
imagine?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
this
the-
is the
Yeah.
second
But
time.
He said that it was
Ugh.
from his dad's, so the son's grandfather,
Yes.
doctor's office.
Mm.
So there wasn't really any like, you know, he shut it down, and
Yeah,
I
Julie
can kind
wanted-
of see how like, oh, okay, yeah, like bones.
Maybe
'cause
the first
he was,
time.
he was known,
But not the second time.
Bones
The
in his
second-
office and stuff like
Right.
that. However, like it just still was weird. Like, why would that be in the
Yeah.
backyard?
And
though?
Julie wanted to call the police, but
She
Herb
did.
shut it down and was
Mhm.
like, "No, don't.
Don't
There's no
call the
need
police."
to.
Yeah.
It's just a skeleton from the doctor's office,
Ladies, if that happens to you, please call the police.
And then his reasoning for why it was in the backyard. She's like, well, why was it all the way out in the woods? Like, oh, the
Yeah.
raccoons.
Yeah, the raccoons.
The
grabbed it.
raccoons.
But then still, like,
knew it.
raccoons
Why would the
throw it-
raccoons
Yeah.
steal
Can we
a
talk
skull?
about raccoons too for a second? That video of him where they painted over the raccoon's head. That was so weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah. And he was like, it deserved a better fate than that. I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? What about all the
Really?
humans
Yeah.
who just
Weird Herb.
burned?
Yeah.
I think
Well-
they deserved a better fate than that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That was a
don't
weird
know.
moment.
That
It
was
is a
really
little bit
weird.
weird,
Mhm.
and it kind of leads to like the thought of like typically serial killers have some sort of weird association to dead animals.
They do.
Either way around
Yeah.
it, there's like not all of them, but like you know,
Well,
it's
they-
not a
they
shocker that
like
it's like why are you
dead
hyperfixating on this
things.
dead raccoon
Oh,
that
even
got
his childhood.
caught?
I guess he brought a dead crow home or something.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was-
And then, oh no, he put it on his teacher's desk,
That's
the dead
right.
crow. And then that moment when his coworker, when he showed his coworker the food that was rotting,
Oh yeah,
that was
yeah,
so
yeah.
gross.
And he's like, I just find it so interesting. And the woman was like, no, that's
no,
gross.
throw it
What are
away.
you doing?
Yeah,
But look at the decomposition of it all.
Now, granted, if
Fucking
he
weird
was
herb.
like
Right.
a scientist and someone in a lab,
That makes sense.
maybe that, and it's inappropriately in the lab.
I
and
think
they're
it's
not in a
that makes
filing
sense, but in a
cabinet?
filing
In
cabinet.
a filing cabinet. Yeah, I think too. It's all those pieces put together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And for
know?
further context, him and his wife owned a thrift store chain
Yes.
called Save-A-Lot, which sounds so
Something like-
familiar.
Well,
Like,
because
I've-
there's a store called Save a Lot, so I don't think it was Save a Lot.
it was.
There's a legit
Was
store
it?
called Save a Lot.
It was called Save-A-Lot.
Isn't there a store called Save a Lot?
Not that
Well,
I know.
it
of.
might.
It used to
Is
be.
it still a thing? Because they started up that
Well-
thrift store chain called Save-A-Lot.
Well,
I don't know.
it could still be a thing. I doubt it's his thing. You know, so maybe his thing
I could be wrong.
went
guys.
away,
Never mind.
and then
They started up a new chain.
Someone else
We're gonna have to
started
look
up.
into that. If you know, let us know. Because
Yeah.
that's
maybe I'm
interesting.
just wildin', but I thought there was an actual store and it wasn't a thrift store called Save a Lot. But maybe that was a Michigan thing.
there
I
might
don't
be.
know.
I don't know.
Okay,
Hmm.
go ahead.
We'll have to look
Anyway.
into it. Anyway,
Yeah, he was
Okay.
a thrift store owner.
it was a
It
thrift
was a
store.
and there were
Mhm.
multiple weird incidents that his
Very
colleagues
much
and
so. I
employees
can't-
talked
well,
about.
And this is like giving just context to the background leading up until like them actually getting access on the property and stuff. But
Mhm.
the fact that like not only were there mannequins at his house, but the mannequins were also like at the thrift store.
In the employee bathroom.
Yeah.
Right,
all
and they were
over.
everywhere.
And they wanted to like, they tried to ask him like, hey, can we like move them or can we like you figure out a better place to put them? And he was like, no, they're fine.
She's like, I can't even clean the bathroom. Like they're
It's
just
weird.
standing
He's probably
there.
like, "Don't
It'd be-
move, Jerry."
it'd be-
You know,
It'd be like us filming this podcast, and there's just a bunch of mannequins in front of us, and we're just like, "Hi,
right.
This is
don't worry about it.
Riverviews."
It's fine.
Honestly,
Yeah.
if I was a
It's
coworker
fine.
there, I probably would quit. It's either I
Yeah.
would purposefully already organize the mannequins and probably get the backlash from him later on,
Mhm.
or just end up quitting because it's just like, no, I'm not going to sit and
yeah,
come
you
to
said
work
that
with
whenever we were
this.
watching.
Like, it's
You're
just
like,
a
I would
no,
quit.
It's an automatic no.
Mhm.
Like, I don't care if this is your store or shop. First, it's a hazard. Something could happen. What if a fire starts or whatever, and we need to get out quickly? And I'm sorry, Jerry the mannequin is in the way. I'm
Right.
gonna be livid. So it's just kind of like he's gonna come in one day, and he's gonna be like, "Why are all the mannequins like in the back of the store?"
Do you think he like sat there and positioned them and like made a scene? You know what I mean? Like had the mannequin putting his hands in the sink or something, like he's
Ew,
washing his
I hate
hands.
that.
Or
That's
just
almost
like
worse.
perform
Like he was
like
playing with them like they were
the erotic
dolls. I don't know.
asphyxiation on their
Were they
necks. and
dressed
was
up
like,
and stuff? Okay.
like practice it on the
What?
mannequins or something.
Possible.
I don't know.
Like a sex doll.
Yeah, honestly, at
True.
this point in time, like, well, no, I wouldn't want that. I guess I'd choose.
They're all
mannequins
having
over
an
sex
orgy.
doll.
What were you gonna say?
Well, because I was just like, if that's what you want to do, just get a sex doll. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not like supportive of those really, but like if that's what he wanted to do, ultimately just
Hey,
get a sex
I
doll.
don't care what the hell you do in your own closed bedroom,
Yeah,
but
again,
don't bring
no
it
kink
to
shaming.
work.
Well,
Yeah.
no. So
Yeah.
this is
You
the
do what you
thing.
want.
I did a study and a whole paper on deviant behavior with sex
Oh,
dolls.
so she does kink shame.
So no, what I'm saying is I just think that there can be a little bit of a downslide when it comes to unrealistic or like what would they call them? Non-humans. It can get a little bit weird. I'm just saying.
You're just saying like if you rely on that versus the real thing.
Yeah,
Is it
I'm
kinda-
just saying, like, to a certain point, there's a whole community of people, and I am so sorry if this is offensive, but it kind of gets weird when that person is talking to that person as if they're human, and then they go.
Yeah,
on with,
I
the
think like
marriage and all that.
anything, it can go too far. You
Oh,
know,
for
like you
sure.
can have too much of anything,
Yeah.
right? You know, if I'm eating candy
Mhm.
obsessively all day, every day, it's probably too much. It's probably wearing on my health.
Right.
I think the same thing can happen. Like if you're sitting there talking to a doll, maybe you need some
Yeah.
more human interaction. Not that you can't do it
Mhm.
every now and then. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
There's just like there has to be a happy medium
Happy
somewhere
medium.
with that because
Yeah.
Sense.
from what I found out about it, it can get pretty dark. But that's another topic.
Anyway,
that's another topic.
There's a lot of topics involved in this.
Yeah,
podcast.
but I'm
Again,
just
do you-
saying, like,
do you
what
want a
is the purpose of the
Patreon?
mannequin? What is the purpose of the mannequin? I guess that was what I
Right.
always kind of wondered. Like, why are they in your house and why are they at your work? Like, I would want to ask him that question if he was still alive today. What was
Yeah.
that purpose?
I would love for him
I have so
to
many
have
questions.
survived this, so
Yeah.
we could have gotten some answers.
Right.
Same.
Right.
And then also to Julie, like,
What were you thinking?
What were you
of the
thinking?
mannequins?
Did you just move
Did
the
you ever
mannequins
ask him?
aside?
She had to have asked him. Like,
Yeah.
what's up with the mannequins,
What's
man?
up?
Like,
Yeah.
what's up with the mannequins,
What's
man?
What's
man?
up?
I
Yeah.
was like, oh, we just ran out of room at the store, so they can hang out by the pool.
And then they're all like positioned a certain way.
See, this is kind of
Yeah.
why I kind of feel bad for like, not bad, but like, you know, women back then, they really were trying to
took a
play their
lot.
cards right. Yeah, they took a lot
took a
because I
lot.
think like women were just taught to be more submissive back then.
Yeah.
And just like when
wasn't
weird
that-
stuff happened, they would
Don't
just be like,
question your husband when he puts mannequins in the pool, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, who knows what their conversations look like? But I just
Right.
know, like, for me, I would have been like, no, what's up with the mannequin? No, seriously, what's up with the mannequin?
I know you're weird Herb and all, but like let's talk about it.
Let's talk about this because, like, I don't want to go for like a swim and like 10 mannequins are looking at me.
Oh God, can you imagine like turning around and it's there?
I startle so easily
Or like
too.
weird Herb, like he notices you're swimming underwater and he like sneaks down there and he like moves the mannequins and then
That's
like
what I'm-
hides and then like you come up out of water and you're like, wait a second.
That'd be the
That's what
best
I'm
prank
saying.
ever, though. Like, I'm
So
losing
you're
my
into
mind.
it. I'm just kidding.
No.
So we know what Bex is into.
No.
Anyway.
Listen,
No.
water, aquatic.
I know that's why she brought it up.
Don't you dare.
What? It always comes back to every single time. You do it to yourself.
You
No,
do.
I just meant like that's the best way to prank someone is to like make them think that they're losing their mind. You know, I,
Okay.
like
Okay.
I didn't say I was into it.
We're not kink shaming. That's all we're saying.
Okay.
Okay. Anywho.
Anyways,
It's an
they're
inside joke.
looking-
Yeah.
Anyways.
I mean, it's a joke that's coming to like some sort of truth, but it's okay.
Only because
We'll
you guys
work
are
it
making
through.
it to be that way. But anyways,
Gosh,
with
what
all
do you
this, you gonna let me continue? or
Cherish
no?
is trying to
go ahead.
start something today.
I'm sorry.
Just instigating today. Whatever.
What were we
So
saying?
I don't even know now. Okay, so they're looking into
Yeah.
Brian's background and stuff, Herb, I should say, and they get permission
Yes.
from Julie
Yeah.
to search the grounds, and that is when they get for a forensic anthropologist in and everything because they're finding all of these bone fragments everywhere.
Yeah.
And what is so shocking, this was a 2-week search, thousands of remains were uncovered.
Yeah.
And they find like shotgun shells, hinged handcuffs with an arm bone sticking through it. They found a foot just randomly everywhere. So
Ribs.
You know
this
what
is-
was the creepiest part?
Jaws.
The teeth for me. I don't know why. I
Were
was
they
just
in
like,
the creek or something?
Yeah, so like they came
Ah.
across the creek that was like a little bit further. I don't have a map, but it was like he had like collections of bones they found
certain
out where it was like in
piles,
certain
areas.
piles. And so like at one point they come across like this like little mini creek situation.
Mhm.
And it almost was like
go down the
very
creek.
like I don't know if he got just super what's the word like
What?
lazy with it. 'Cause,
yeah.
like when they got to the creek, it was just like thrown about like whatever. Because at first
Like
it
he
seemed
was
they were trying to-
sorting and then he just gave up,
Yeah,
you know?
he just like
So-
gave up
too much to
because-
work with.
He needed a sandwich or something.
Yeah.
He, just,
And
he was
I-
like, femur schmemer, you know, I'll just leave you there. It's fine.
True though.
It makes you wonder.
Yeah.
I think he got lazy with it and it was just like, oh, no one's really gonna come back here or whatever. So it's just like they were like you said, it's all jaws, like skulls,
No.
parts of ribs,
No,
pelvic.
no. Oh, wrong jaws.
bones.
Sorry, go ahead.
Back to the water.
So I don't know. I think that like it kind of came down to like 10,000 or something like
I
that.
keep getting
Even
Yes,
different
more.
it
numbers.
was 10,000. Well, 10,000 plus. That was
10,000
like
plus.
a guesstimation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there's even more
Has to be
still
more
on the
because
farm.
like yeah, as the guy, the new owner of the property, he said he found some stuff.
Can we talk about Mr. Graves?
Can we talk about him? Let's
Okay,
do
but-
it.
just for a second?
Okay,
What? What do
yeah.
you wanna say?
Sure, let's go. No, let's go. Let's
Talking-
talk about Rob
Talking
Graves.
about
Yeah.
weird kinks, I think this man was getting off on it a little bit.
Rob
Can we
Graves?
agree?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think what was funny is like at some point when he sat down and he was talking about how he was geeking out on like the different, you know, like the whole like story of the murders and like all that type of
Mhm.
stuff. And like I guess the interviewer person behind the camera was like, what do you think about these people that are obsessed over
That was
over
so great.
like,
That was
and
my
you
favorite
can tell
part.
you can tell Rob was just kind
He
of
was
like, well,
uncomfortable.
those people just want to know.
They're just curious, you know. It's not like
I'm
it's not like
oh,
they
you're
think
one of
about
them.
it all the time,
It's just
you
a
know.
fascination.
It's not like we not like we jerk off to it, okay? It's healthy. I mean, they do.
He looks so uncomfortable.
You can tell he was uncomfortable
There
when
were
he said that.
so many moments where he looked uncomfortable. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you're an awkward man.
I think that
Yeah.
like he was just the weirdest when I found out too that like he didn't change hardly anything about the house
Right.
or just anything, and
No.
he was just like,
Right.
yeah,
like it was
I
his own
sleep in the
personal
same room that
museum.
Herb did, and I'm just like,
And I
That's
swim in
weird.
the pool
He
where
lets
he
his
kills
kids-
people.
He
That's
lets his
gross.
kids swim in the pool.
That's weird.
No, it's weird that you would
Sorry.
So
buy
weird.
a family house.
Imagine if you were Julie and you're like, oh yeah, those were like the comforter sheets that I picked out.
Right. Like
Ew.
You
that.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just like
Or-
someone else, like you know,
Or Mark
imagine someone else
could
just-
come in and be like, that's where he strangled so-and-so, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone
I
having
mean-
that knowledge
Right.
still.
Yeah.
It makes sense from an entrepreneurial perspective because like he's made a book off of it. He does
has.
tours. So
Right.
there is like a financial gain to
Mhm.
it. But on a personal note, I don't think
I'm not saying it's
healthy to live it.
stupid.
I think it's hilarious that he had a priest come and
Yeah.
bless the land, and then a shaman came and cleansed it.
That's not going to take
But
bone
then-
fragments
but
away,
no,
you know?
But then he thinks that Herb's ghost lives there, and I'm like, that's not how ghosts work.
That's
because doesn't Herb have to die there in order for his ghost to stick around? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't know, but it's like if the property has been cleansed and blessed, then why would Herb's ghost be around?
To be honest with you, I don't
doesn't make
really
sense.
think
No, it
that
doesn't.
like it's that interesting enough for him to make $1 off, like as far as like a museum or a tour. I don't really think that he's gonna get him a lot of traction off of that.
See,
And
you
so
say that-
I think he added that stuff to add more
Oh,
into it.
possibly.
To get
yeah.
people to be more so like, oh wow, like maybe I want
Make
to
it
go
more
there.
interesting.
To make it more
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, like, I think the story itself is interesting, obviously, but it's
Mhm.
just like, I think like it wasn't necessary for him to be like, oh yeah, like Herb's ghost and like this and that and the other. It's just like, bro, we already got enough that we're working with here.
Right.
You don't need to like add this to like sell. I don't even know if he's making it in a museum or if people can show up there.
Was it him that sold the like little faucet handles?
No, so
No,
he found
people
those.
stole those.
They
Okay.
stole those,
Yeah.
Okay.
and they sell them on. I think I wrote down the name of the website. Actually,
Murders.com.
It was murderauction.com. So his new home was
Wasn't
missing
far off.
some marble faucet handles, and he found the original ones because
Yeah.
people after crime scenes will just
Right.
break in and steal shit to make a dime.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that was a thing, but I'm really
yeah.
not surprised.
I learned
Yeah.
something
I'm not
new. It's
surprised, but I
crazy.
didn't
Yeah.
know about that either. It kind of makes sense though. I mean, some people that are like really into like the whole like
True
true crime
crime.
murders and stuff. Let me have something that they used to own. I think that's
Something
a
of
little
theirs.
weird.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
definitely weird.
I wouldn't want to own anything.
I did know that people from prison will sell some of their stuff. Yeah, like sometimes murderers will be like, "Here's my blanket that I sleep with," and then they can sell it.
Oh God.
Yeah, I've
That's
seen that
weird.
before. It's all weird.
That's weird.
Yeah. That is really
I don't-
interesting.
I don't personally want to like financially support someone
Yeah.
that kills.
Yeah, and it's also kind of
That's just
like when
me.
you have that
No.
object, like, what are you gonna do? I don't know. It's kind of weird to me because it's just like, okay, so you now have those marble handles.
What
Like,
are you gonna do with it?
I guess the only way I could see it is like if somebody was like, man, I really love those handles.
But can you
Like, that-
imagine?
that fits my aesthetic?
Like if guests come over, like are you gonna be like, yeah, and then that's where Weird Herb, the serial killer, he
Yeah, like
well, he
that's
murdered
your
people.
icebreaker.
Right,
in
right.
Conversations, but
Yeah.
like I don't think everybody's gonna digest that well.
No, I don't think so.
So I don't know if that's a good idea for you to be like, guess what? Those handles?
You like those handles?
Yeah, you like those handles? Well,
Funny story.
Fox Hollows. Ever heard of them? Yeah, I got them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
It's weird.
It's definitely a dinner conversation for sure.
I don't think I would want to go back to that person's
No.
house. I'm so
I don't
sorry.
care
Call me
how good the
judgmental.
chicken is. Like that's not. It's
Yeah.
not good. Is it? No.
Yeah, it's just like you make the best pasta ever. But I just don't think that I could see myself physically back at your residence.
But let's never do this again.
You know
Yeah.
this stainless steel pot that I made your pasta in?
Right.
It was Dahmer's.
I know. It was Dahmer's, man. I know.
That'd be so gross.
That would be so gross.
Be like his victims were literally in here.
I know. Don't. It's okay. I use
He made
Dawn.
a stew.
I put hot water in it
Right,
first.
right, right,
it's
right,
fine.
right.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's been
It's fine.
sterilized.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Oh no.
That would make me vomit.
I am kind of hungry though.
That's messed up. That's not even right. That's not even right. Back to the story though. I think Mr. Graves, I don't know why I like calling him Mr. Graves.
Yeah.
Mr. Graves is weird. And I would just put him almost up there with Herb. I'm so sorry, but I just kind of feel like I get it, like true crime. Like we love true crime. Obviously, this is our
we're here for
podcast.
it.
But I'm just not really articulating and understanding why he never changed the house and everything. It's such a beautiful property, honestly.
And
like,
they bought it for horses, so it's like that was the original intent. So why didn't you change things? And
I wonder how many acres it was.
I
it
do
looks like
not recall.
a
It looked like a lot.
solid. I want to say 2+.
Okay.
It was more than 2 acres. It was at least
All
10.
we saw, literally all we saw was the lawn in the back.
I'm looking it
That's
up
what I'm
right
saying.
now. I'm looking it up right now. Just
Well, shit, I don't know.
Fox,
I only see
I
what
don't
I
know.
saw.
Hollow,
Only see what I
Farms.
saw.
Only see what I saw. Only saw what I see.
18-acre property.
Okay.
Yes.
They didn't show us all the 18 acres, that's for sure. But also, that's what makes it so hard with the bones and everything else.
Yeah.
Too.
And back to
That's so
that, while they were searching for all of these bones and finding like the hinge handcuffs of the arm bone and everything like that, they what frustrates me so much with this case is that they weren't watching Herb during this whole investigation.
No,
and
they
how
didn't
did they
have-
not have enough evidence to see him as a suspect and
I
like
just
arrest
it was
truly-
his
him?
home.
I don't think that they
Yeah.
were truly like wanting to believe that it was him.
But
I
they
just
found
don't.
all the bones and they had no one like keeping an eye on him.
No.
It was wild.
And they didn't think he was going to run. Like, why don't you think he
Right.
was going to run? But he
Of
did.
course
he's gonna run.
He
Or
ran.
He did
Or
ran.
like the forever run,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kill himself.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So
maybe-
it was 1 week he was missing.
Right.
maybe this is too soon to bring up. Do y'all think he killed himself?
See, that's what I kind of go
I-
back and forth with because later on we
I
do
have a
find out
theory.
that he had communication with the lawyer and someone else, or was it just the lawyer? I can't remember.
There's a transcript
I don't
between
remember
the
that.
lawyer and one of the investigators, so his attorney and then
Uh-huh.
one of the investigators, and he had contacted his attorney a few days before he ended up committing suicide in Canada. That's where he ran off to. But
I don't know for sure
he
if
was
he killed
basically-
himself.
he basically was like, "Hey, I'm not going to be around anymore. Please watch over my family, and be on the lookout for Mark Goodyear. He's a
Yeah.
dangerous dude."
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's when he just cut all forms of contact.
Yeah.
And police found, where did they end up finding him
Someone,
again?
well,
By his car? I can't
By his
remember the
car.
location.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And a few days also before he passed, Canadian authorities had
Yeah.
spotted him sleeping in his car. And
I think someone said that there was stuff in the back of his car.
there was a box of videotapes.
Videotapes,
But
but when
when
they
you
got there-
find him,
Yeah.
There's no
dead,
videotapes.
there are no videotapes.
And there
to
was
be
no like
found.
carpet in his car. Even the
Mhm.
lining was pulled out. He
That's
ripped
why
it out.
that makes me question because it's like typically like why would someone do that? Why?
There was also no murder weapon. So how is it a
Right.
suicide?
Exactly. That's
Where
why
is
I'm just
it?
kind of like I don't know. I don't believe that.
Right, and I'm so frustrated that they didn't look into it further because
Well,
that
and then
looks
even
like a
Mark-
cover-up to me.
Even Mark was like, he would not have shot himself. And I kind of agree with that assessment of the fact, like, he was so self-involved. All he
Yeah.
cared about was himself. Why would he kill himself?
Yeah.
You know? He probably wanted to talk about it.
I think there's more to that.
I think there is too.
for sure.
Yeah.
I
I have a theory.
I have a theory
In
too.
my own personal opinion, don't come sue me, but I think that someone else did it.
I think Mark did it. Because
Maybe.
he was like, "Hey, look out, Mark is a dangerous guy."
Mhm.
And then the box of videotapes go missing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Mark's like, "Oh, he didn't shoot him." And then Mark has all this information about the
Yeah.
case that he shouldn't have for
And didn't-
someone who was almost a victim and reported Herb to the police.
Didn't
Like, there's
Mark,
way
too,
too
have, like,
too many
a-
details of the case.
Mark had like a video converter of sorts, like a machine that
I thought that was
converted.
Herb.
Did he?
Yeah, Herb had that.
And
But
did
I-
it go missing? Because I remember like a bunch of his videos went missing.
Yes, and those were the ones in the
Yeah.
boxes probably that he
Yeah.
had in his car.
Well, it
before
makes
he
you
ended up
wonder.
dead.
Mark
Yeah.
might have them now.
Mhm,
Yeah,
that's
I-
what I think. But that's just a theory.
I think that like when it comes back around, that when they start reopening the case and looking at it further,
Mm-hmm.
I think when Mark double backs on his first statement,
Yeah, which is
I
30
think
years later,
that
mind you.
that becomes where it's just like, oh, but you know what? Like it makes sense because his first statement, it really doesn't add up. Like
Mm-mm.
typically if you are terrified of that
Mhm.
person and like how, you know, you feel like you might be drugged and all that type of stuff, you're not going to stay. And the
Right.
fact that like Mark just put it off where it was just like, oh yeah, I stayed. And I was like, but why?
Well, they dated for like 2 years.
But
Which
he
he
didn't say
admitted
that.
to
He didn't say
way
that in the first
later.
statement.
Right.
Exactly.
He said it. It was like a one-time deal, and I think
Yeah.
maybe it slipped out a little bit later that he actually went and I don't know, like saw him again the next time or whatever,
There are
or
so
something
many
like that.
versions of his
But
story.
then,
Yeah.
then the woman investigator who's like texting him and stuff like that, he reveals to her that actually it was more so of a 2-year relationship.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
how does a 2-year relationship and you not really know? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like you never got away. You weren't ever able to say something, you know.
Right.
He went other places. He wasn't like locked in the house. How are you never going to tell the police?
Yeah.
Right.
It
So,
just made
it
it
doesn't add up.
a lot
No.
weird to me when it showed Mark kind of getting another I don't know if it was an interview or what. I think it was, but he essentially was like brought back
police
into the
interview?
house. And
Oh,
like
yeah,
walking
yeah.
around the house and
So-
stuff like that. That was so like weird and
This
off-putting
is
to me.
because the case was reopened. I feel
Yeah, I know,
that he
but-
feels more comfortable to come forward and
Talk
give
his
more
part,
of a
yeah.
story. It's like
So this is when the paranormal investigators did the show.
they were doing their own film
That
Right.
was dumb.
and then got.
I didn't like that.
It was dumb. I mean, I'm sorry. That's
Yeah.
my opinion. It just wasn't needed.
Right.
yeah,
I was just like,
that's-
okay, what? Like it just kind of it clipped over to that.
Felt
And I
like
was
they
like,
were padding a
what?
paper. Now it did eventually tie into it. So in the beginning, I was like, "What the
It
hell
did
is going on?"
Go off track a little bit.
It felt like it went off track
Like they
for
needed
too
more
long.
juice.
Yeah,
I
went.
think.
They went to Fox Hollow Farms to look into Herb's ghost.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
Mr. Graves was like, oh, Herb's
Mhm.
ghost could be
Ooh,
around
And then
here.
they
let's make
end
some
up
money off of
meeting
it.
Mark, and Mark says some really a few incriminating things. He's constantly harassing the paranormal investigator with
Yeah.
messages and stuff. He's creepy.
My thing is just like, what is the paranormal people? Let's be real. Like, what is that going to do for the victims' families?
I don't know.
That was
Yeah.
kind of what my point is. It's just
I don't
like
think
you
it
guys
was
are
for
here-
that.
I know, but like honestly, granted, that's what should be one of the biggest focal points of coming out with a documentary or whatever, helping put awareness out there so people can help them fundraise money because it's on
Right.
them.
Right.
And then 2, it's like also bringing awareness is like, how do we know who the true killer was?
Right.
We know who the true killer
Mhm.
is. Maybe we'll get more information, and more information put some of this to rest for the families.
Right. And so the case, it was kind of just given up on after they found all these bones, and then Herb passed away, and they really didn't have the funding to continue the investigation. And then it was basically, there's all these bones, all these bodies that they need to identify.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they wanted the families to foot the bill to test for DNA to determine if these missing people were actually the victims
Yeah.
of Herb Baumeister. So the case was closed for a bit, but then a cousin of one of the missing victims, Alan Livingston. So this was
Mhm.
just a few years ago, 2023.
Yeah.
He wanted to find out, because he's pretty sure Alan was a victim
Yeah.
of Herb Baumeister. So he came forward and said, hey, I want to determine if his bones are in there. And that's why the case is reopened, because they want
There
to
was a bunch of Allens in
find-
this story. Was that just me?
Yeah, Alan
Yeah.
Livingston. But so why
was
why
the
the
first-
cousin stepped forward and decided to pursue this again
Mhm.
was because his aunt, she is passing, I
Right.
believe, is cancer, and so
Mhm.
he wanted her
Yeah.
to have that closure.
For her son.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why
I know
This
there's
kind
hair
of-
everywhere.
Yeah.
this why this case is so popular again, because they're still determining the
Yeah.
DNA of some of these bones
Oh yeah.
and discovering more victims. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Well, it's
But-
sad. I mean, like, just looking over, like, the information that's provided, as a viewer, it's kind of like they definitely got dismissed as a whole community.
Right.
And on top of that, like, now that they had reopened the case and looking over the facts, it's still not really saying that, like, oh, yeah, we're going to take ownership of what the police and investigators back then should have
Did or
done,
didn't
which is
do.
essentially,
Mhm.
like, putting in the resources to identify the victims. I
Right.
think at one point they said that some of the bones were found at some of the some sort of classroom or something.
Classroom?
Somebody's bones was identified in some like
They
school
have
classroom or
they
something
have
like
they
that.
have a lot of the bones at the University of Indianapolis.
Yeah, but it's,
Okay.
I think it was kind of discovered the identity of somebody, but it kind
Mm-hmm.
of, at least for me, it gave off the impression that, okay, you have them at the university for like a display, but they're not there
I
for
think they're
like
researching them too. I think they're just keeping them there.
really.
I
got
honestly don't remember this
I
part,
got an
but it was
impression that it was
a
just
long
kind of like, oh,
documentary.
like, and we found out that one of my loved ones' bones were at in this classroom or whatever, and it's just kind of
Right.
like, great, thanks.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't aware, and I'm kind
Yeah.
of like, I feel like the family should know where their remains are,
Absolutely.
but yet you can lug around the bones whatever you please and whatever you want to do with them.
Well,
but
and it goes
Yeah.
back to the whole like, oh, we just don't have funding to help you identify your loved one.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I
You
don't
know?
And
know.
what's so
It's-
frustrating
it
is
sucks.
even with this new information uncovered, they're still not really looking into it.
Mhm.
no,
Even with all this new evidence and these new stories that Mark Goodyear is putting out there about what happened, and also
Which keep
everybody-
changing.
yes,
It's not
but-
the same story.
exactly.
Yeah.
But they were even suspicious before. We
Oh,
haven't
he was
brought
a
this up yet.
suspect, yeah.
he was a
Yeah.
suspect, but Herb couldn't have done this alone. Like dragging
No, like-
bodies, all of those bodies in the
Yeah.
back of the woods to burn them, he could not have done that alone.
That's
Like,
a
there was
lot.
more people involved in this, I think, than
Mhm.
they realized. And there's evidence supporting that, but they're still not looking into it.
the wooded terrain like is so crazy intense that like for one person to drag a body in
It would-
those conditions, like
It
it's
would take you a
super hard to
lifetime.
do.
Exactly.
And so I feel like that makes sense to me, because I'm just kind of like, yeah, like honestly, like I imagine maybe that one time you do it and you're like, well, that was a lot of hard work, but several victims,
I've
like,
gardened
that's a lot.
before.
Yeah.
That was enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think with Mark Goodyear, the fact that, like, I don't know, when he said that one part where he's like, oh, I remember standing in the window and looking out.
Which
and
is
then
like,
seeing
how
the
could you
burning
have seen the
pile
burning
of-
pile
Yeah,
from there?
and I
you
could
know?
tell that those were skull, like those were heads,
Those were
skulls in there. And
bodies,
I'm just
yeah.
kind of like, okay, like,
But there were
bro,
no bones. There were no bones. There were no bones found on the patio
Right.
or like where he said
Well,
that they
yeah,
were.
he said it was like in the front, not in the front yard, or
Like
was it the
right
front?
behind the
yard,
patio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
even in
that's
the
where he
woods,
was,
and
like,
there's no
insinuating.
indication that
Yeah.
there was no burning of any pile right there or
Right.
anything like that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah. But then at the same time, I just kind of feel like it's really interesting that he was very detailized, it as though he had seen a burning pile
Well,
of bodies before.
And that's what made them think, like, okay, first off, he's been here before,
Right.
you know.
Walking
he
around
feels
like he knows where
comfortable.
everything is.
He's got no shoes on,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, that's what Steve, the detective with the
I thought that was
Yeah.
thick
interesting.
mustache. But yeah,
That was
he's-
some mustache. I
something.
was impressed.
Yeah, I was impressed
Yeah.
too. I put it in the notes. Solid
Did you?
mustache, bruh.
Stop.
That's crazy.
That's funny.
But he's the one, because the filmmakers passed on the information when Mark was sending all of these texts. Like,
Mhm.
they were like, "This is way beyond our job
Scope, yeah.
description," so they handed it over to Detective Steve Ainsworth, and he was looking
Mhm.
into it. And
I thought he did a really good job.
I thought he did too, and I
Yeah.
really appreciated how seriously he was
Yeah,
taking
I think that's
everything
what I
Mark
liked.
was saying, because it's like, well,
Mhm.
is he making this up, or
Yeah.
is he actually guilty of doing this with Herb?
This wasn't his first rodeo. You could tell he knew what to
Yeah.
look for.
And he was happy to brag about his past
His
cases too.
suspicion.
I thought that was funny.
That scene where he's like, and he's got weights. And
Yeah.
he's doing
I
that.
was like,
I don't know.
alright.
It just was funny.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
good,
get it.
Good
Get it,
for him.
Steve.
He was in
Uh-huh.
good shape.
He was.
Yeah.
He was. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just weird that like how Mark at the very end, I know we're jumping, but it just kind of like really added to me where it's just like you definitely had something to do with the victim's death,
Yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
the way he just kind of like
He was
joked about
creepy.
it at the very end
So
Yeah.
was
creepy.
just kind of like, I don't care how many years pass by,
Don't joke about
you
it.
should not have any right to joke about it.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing good and well that you were there or around the time when those people were dying, and then you're kind of like, I don't know, did I do it? No, you don't say that. And so for me, he reminds me of like the type of killers who they want to get some sort of acknowledgement, and they want that ego being stroked of like, look what I did.
Why else is he willing to talk about it again? Because he wants it opened up, in my opinion.
It's kind of like, oh, you guys are so
dumb.
dumb. You couldn't put two to two together here. Let me give you a couple of bones. No pun intended.
And at some point, he knew that they were basically questioning him, and he was like, well, then why didn't I, serve prison time? Like, why didn't they convict me, you know?
Like, look, I got away with it now, so like, it must not be me, or is it me? And then the riddles that he was sending the girl, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
The riddle that he sent, it's
not appropriate.
Not an accomplice, never the victim, never attacked. What am I?
What am I?
I'm like the killer, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
duh.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And nobody's looking into it. It's so frustrating to me that they don't even have enough evidence now to, I don't know.
Maybe
Herb
was
I
the
think
accomplice.
Herb was the accomplice.
That's kind of what
I was thinking.
Makes it seem.
I don't think it was one or the other. I think it was both of them, and I think Mark was the mastermind.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier for him to get away with it because all of the evidence is at Herb's place. And Herb's
it's possible. I mean, I at the very
so
least
is Mark.
think that Mark had a lot to do with it and needs to serve some time.
Can we?
For sure.
Oh, this was something that I thought was interesting. But Rob, in the beginning, when the filmmakers were receiving all of those incriminating texts from Mark, and they were kind of freaking out, they were talking to Rob about it, and Rob was like, "Oh, I don't know what to say without making it seem like." Without accusing him of being involved in these crimes. But later when Steve interviews him, the detective, he goes, "Oh, I don't think Mark did it. I don't think." I was like, "That's a switch. That's a switch."
Oh,
and how are you so certain?
Yeah,
when the Graves guy
when
says
Rob,
that?
because Rob at first, the filmmakers, the paranormal people, they said, "Hey, do you think Rob was, or do you think Mark was involved?" in the crimes, and Rob is like, I don't know what to say. I'm scared to say anything because it'll sound accusatory. But then when the detective asked him, "Do you think Mark was involved?" Rob was like, "No, I don't think he did anything."
Yeah,
what happened there? I bet Mark freaking threatened him.
You think so?
That's what I think. I'm so
I didn't even
frustrated
think
with
about
this.
that.
And that's why I felt
it was because remember me and you were talking about it and we were like,
well, in the beginning we're like, just say it.
Like, what are you? Why are you like holding it on? And then like we were talking about, oh well, it's
but I didn't even put the two together.
Why was he so chicken to say it?
Yeah.
And then why was he denying it later? Why was he saying, no, I don't think he did anything? But before, he was like, oh, I don't want to say it.
I don't want to say it. I don't know.
I don't know.
Part of me, that's one of the reasons why I'm just kind of like, it was a little bit weird how they like executed the flow of it a little bit. But at the same time,
I think that's why I didn't like it.
Part of me was just kind of like, they still technically didn't have enough incriminating evidence for him. So maybe it was just also like a
very speculative.
Like, in order for have him on, because remember, they weren't showing his face or anything up until the very end.
He didn't want his face to be shown.
Part of me
I was so
like,
glad.
maybe he's using that as the threat also. Like, I'm not going to be a part of it if you guys are also going to accuse me and make it so much pointing towards me. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's why he was like, oh, I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it, because it's just like, if he did and they get it on film, then.
Yeah.
I was so glad that they showed his face at the end, though,
Finally.
because I felt like it really tied it all together of like, oh, he's guilty. Like, some of the faces that he would make, I was like, oh, you creepy.
Yeah.
You're scary, you know?
I was so frustrated
like,
with the documentary
laughing?
because it's like the murderer is literally just flaunting himself on this film right now, and nobody's doing anything about it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, well, we can't 100% say, but it very much feels though that
makes
like
you wonder.
He has something to do with it and he knows way more. And I think that it's very inappropriate that he pretty much is playing around with like information in a sense. And he's been doing it for like just decades. And it's just like, man, like the fact that like he's going back and forth on his word and telling of like saying, oh, well, this happened, but actually this happened and this happened. It's like, okay, so you don't really have any sort of remorse or just compassion towards the families.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Like,
Even if you had
why
nothing to
would-
do
even
with
if you had
it,
nothing
you
to
wouldn't
do,
treat it
do
that way.
No,
Yeah.
you wouldn't. So
I
like for
agree.
me, I'm just kind of like, no, I definitely think that you in order for you to be a killer to this degree, you have to have like just no type of compassion towards humans or a disassociation towards it. So he gives that.
But do you remember he went to one of the families, the funeral of one of the victims?
Yes.
He went and hugged one of the
skeezy.
sisters,
Yeah.
and she said that,
It was
I just
weird.
immediately got
Mhm.
chills. That would be
Mhm.
weird.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
are you showing up to
I
that?
feel like her
Yeah.
intuition knew.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
It's never wrong.
Right.
It's never wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
That
Well, I'm kind of hoping that because of all this, they will open up. I mean, I think it's still an open investigation, but they will look into
Is
it
it?
further.
yeah.
Maybe put more resources toward it. Someone will pony up some money, and we'll get some answers.
Yeah, and they're still identifying victims through DNA testing.
Mhm.
Oh, and the
So it'll
dog
be a few
search was
years.
really that was really interesting when they had the cadaver dogs go
Yeah.
out.
And they found another bone, didn't they? Yeah.
Oh, they
Yeah.
found like 4 fragments. Yeah.
Mhm. There's still more
and
out
at
there.
the end, they didn't say anything about it, and I kept waiting. Like, are you going to talk about it? So I don't know what the outcome was of that, but I'd be curious to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to be a few more years before. I think we're just going to keep identifying body after body.
I think so too.
And it
think
would be
so.
interesting. What's the total count now?
25.
I thought it was,
Was it
yeah 20. I saw
24,
27,
25?
but
Because
Oh.
I kept hearing different numbers throughout the documentary on top of like all the bone fragments. I'm like, okay, how many people does that equal?
Right, exactly.
So-
10,000 bone fragments is
Well,
what, you know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they don't even really know. 'Cause,
I think
like,
that's the
it's-
case. I think they said 25 plus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like they're bone fragments that takes
Yeah.
so long to like piece which to which. You know what I mean?
Well, but they can
Especially if
still
you got-
test each one and see if they're different people.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But they can't test 10,000 bone fragments. That would be a lot of
Yeah.
testing. I mean, they could,
that is.
but that would probably cost a
It
lot of money.
says
That's what I was
police
thinking.
found the remains of 11 men, 8 identified on
Mhm.
Baumeister's property, but they
Just-
know there's more bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mark had admitted to, or
He
he
said
said
57.
that Herb had said
Yeah.
56 or 57.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, oh yeah.
He told me
Herb-
57. And
Herb's-
isn't that interesting that he knows Herb's number?
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
or is that your number?
And it's also
Or both
kind of
of your
like,
numbers.
okay,
I don't
there's
know.
so much information that you just were sitting on.
Yeah,
Why, dude? Why?
Oh,
Why were you sitting on that?
The whole thing where he was like, "Oh yeah, I made up that whole story about him
So I
taking
could
me
get
back to the house
attention.
so I could get police to search the
Yeah.
property." Well,
Yeah,
why
right.
don't you just tell
Yeah.
them in the beginning? Why did you have to make up a story?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, yeah, I just call bullshit on that.
Same.
Yeah.
I do
There's
too.
so many lies. And then when he was like, "Oh yeah, and I saw the warrant, the wanted posters and the gay bars," and so I'd be
Yeah.
like, "That's him,"
Yeah.
and he'd stand up
I
on the
would
bar counters and be
stand
like,
up.
"He's a killer.
Yeah.
Don't go to his
Yeah,
house."
right.
No one said that he was doing that though.
No
No.
one believes that
He had
that
no
Yeah.
witnesses
happened.
for that.
Yeah.
So he just
They-
amplifies and exaggerates.
They remember seeing him there and Herb at certain bars and stuff, but they don't
And at the
remember him
farm.
advocating and saying like,
No.
"Oh, like yeah."
There were multiple witnesses who saw both of
Mhm.
them at the farm, or would say, "Oh, Mark took me back to the farm."
Yeah.
There was just so many more details we
Yeah,
haven't even
yeah.
covered, but it's just messy. This
It's-
whole
is very much messy.
this whole case is messy and sad.
It's pretty
Um,
sad.
it
That's
is.
kind of how I see it, and I mean, it's not like I pity the like the case, but it's almost kind of like I don't know. I'm not too hopeful with this one
Yeah.
because of like the layers of discrimination and just like typically when like things have happened like this type of case, it's been so long ago. I do think that the benefit is when you have documentaries that come out to remind people that, hey,
It
this
can-
is still an issue,
yeah.
it's still going on, it still hasn't been really solved, and we need your help. But outside
It can bring
of that,
some light to an issue that
it can.
yeah.
But I think if nothing else is discovered, I fear it could be put under the rug again.
Yeah.
And he could just be sitting back chilling. Honestly, like overall, my thoughts of the documentary is the story in itself is very interesting. The documentary on Hulu, it's okay. I don't know. I recommend people to watch it, but at the same time, I also feel like it could have been done better.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I would watch it for the story because it is a really fascinating story,
Yeah.
but I think they could have done it better.
Yeah, I think all in all, I'm just frustrated that more hasn't been done.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I feel really bad for the families. That's not
Me too.
fair. It's sucky. And I'm so sorry that they have to kind of still find the answers that they're looking for and
Right.
identify. Because it's like, some of the families are like, oh, they're missing. And they are like, are they a part of Herb's killings?
They don't
or
know.
They not?
Yeah.
Like, should we be looking in a different avenue? Like, it's
Yeah.
really hard to say.
They could
And
still
it
be
sucks
looking.
that it's like the only maybe connection they have is like, well, they were gay, so maybe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
HIVs,
that
I
has
don't
to be
know. Yeah.
the link, you know?
Oh, didn't it
Almost.
break your heart when the one mom was like, I still have a landline in case he ever calls? I was like,
Yes.
That was so sad.
That was so sad.
Yeah.
Wasn't that Alan?
Yeah.
That was
That was Alan.
I'm so
Alan's
glad that they
family.
finally were able to identify him.
Right.
The first
Yeah.
one, because it's like that woman would have been waiting.
No,
till
I
her
was
last
like,
dying breath.
she
was able to
could, she
pass
could
with that
cancel her
closure.
landline. You know?
Yeah,
It was sad.
it was very sad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But,
Okay.
all right. Well,
Well-
tell us what you think.
yes, if you
Yeah.
have
Did you
any
like
more
it?
interesting facts to add to the case that we
Yeah.
could discuss,
Who do
let
you
us
think
know
did
in the
it?
comments. Huh?
I was like, who do you think did it? Do you think Herb did it? Do you think Mark did it? Do you think they were both doing it together? I mean, at one point they did do it together.
Yeah, I think Mark was the lead.
But I mean, and also too, like, how would you feel if you had a house and then someone ended up buying that house from you and maybe you left your stuff behind and then you find out, I don't know, a couple months or a year later that they never did sell any of your stuff and they were just like sleeping in your room and like, ooh,
And
this is
profiting
where.
off of your crimes.
Yeah, I mean, even if you didn't do crimes, maybe you're just a regular family, and you're like, oh, I left back a bed and a comforter and all the decor, and they're like, ooh, I get to solve down in such and so sheets.
I hated that little
I
shimmy.
so
How would
shimmy.
you
Get
feel about
comfy.
that?
Not okay.
Yeah.
Also, what do you think happened to all the mannequins? Where are they now?
Oh my gosh, do you think
Do you
do you
think?
think people can have them?
Do you
on the
think Mr.
online?
Graves still has them?
And you
They're
think like
still in
somebody?
Save-A-Lot stores?
Oh, yeah, no one knows.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Or that,
I
like,
don't
you
see
know,
why not.
like they ended up back on eBay somehow or something, and people are like wanting to buy them for
They're
their
on
store.
murder auction.
Oh.
Yeah.
It could be.
Ooh.
I
would
hope they
never.
disposed of them.
I hope so
I hope
too.
so
That's
too.
creepy.
I hope they
That is
burned them
creepy.
all.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, we didn't even talk about how he like flipped out in the store, but that wasn't that relevant, I guess.
He had a fit and threw all of his shit that he was selling at the store in a compactor.
Little
Yeah.
bitch fit.
Little
Yeah.
bitch fit.
Weird
Yeah.
Herb.
A man
Aw.
fit.
With that's just weird Herb.
This is weird, Herb. Let him do his thing. Honestly, that's how they treated him.
You know, there was a guy like
Really?
that whenever
Okay.
I started my job, and I ended up getting him fired because I called him out on something weird that he said. This is totally like a Patreon thing that we could talk about later.
Okay.
And I called him out, and he got fired. So the weird Herb of my life was gone.
Yeah. They keep popping
Anyways.
up, unfortunately.
They really do.
Okay, well, thank you guys for watching so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yep. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.